Hi, everybody. I'm Denise Pimentel, back with Unshaken Voices. Today we have episode 2, where we are going to be talking to a special guest. Her name is Christina Petty. She has a wonderful story to share with us, a story of healing, of faith that, came and went and came again. And I just really appreciate her for being a part of this journey, which is a real example of how faith isn't always a straight line. It can be something we grow up with, something we question sometimes or walk away from, and then come back to, but in a much deeper and personal way. So let me go on and bring her in. Hi, Christina.
Hi.
So, welcome to Unshaken Voices. I'm so happy that you can be here and that you're willing to share your testimony in order to help other people, which you do daily just by being a teacher. So, I think being a teacher is a great way to help other people, especially for future generations to come. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about you.
I am a teacher. It was a long road to get to where I am now. Somebody who struggled with confidence with school early on. I was born and raised Roman Catholic, and church was a routine part of my life. CCD in the morning, and then I was even altar server during Mass, but I never really grasped what a relationship and surrender to Jesus was or looked like, or how it was so instrumental in my life. So it was easy to walk away, but it happened at a very difficult time of my life when I lost my mother. I
Okay.
started to really, pull away from the church and from my belief that God's plan was the right plan.
Right. Okay. So I wanted to start at the foundation of your life and your early life. Can you share a little bit about your early childhood and the environment that you grew up in?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, it was a bit inconsistent. When I was two, my sister and I were taken from my mother. Um, she had some mental health struggles and some addictions that she had to get help for. So we ended up living with my great grandmother for a few years, and my grandparents were instrumental in driving up to South Orange every night, all the time, helping out. And we grew up in a safe place where we were loved, but that separation so early on definitely left a lasting impact on me. When my mother did get us back and she was doing so much better, we had a safe place to live. My stepfather came into the picture, and they married soon after that. And it was your typical family growing up. We had our struggles, our good times, our fun.
Right.
Um, but there was consistency until I was about 16, and then unfortunately my mother relapsed on drug use, and that was something that took me a long time to come to terms with. That was something that was more important to her than her children.
Yeah.
Understanding now, as somebody who struggled with those feelings, that wasn't something that was going through her mind. Somebody who
Right.
has an addiction doesn't have control over it.
Did she
Um,
just not see that she had a problem?
so she knew she had a problem. Unfortunately, that use came at a time when it was available. She was around people in her work industry as a banquet manager who had access. She had just survived breast cancer.
Wow.
She was 35 when she battled it, and somebody who really prided herself on her appearance, was struggling
Mm,
with her image and her confidence at that time. So it was kind of a storm of a few things happening. I believe that led to that use again.
Okay. That reminds me a little bit about my mother, the life that she had. Her mother, which I think you did read my book and heard that, when she was 9. I mean, it wasn't drug use, but her mother had a severe manic episode and was put in a mental institution when my mother was 9 and never came out. So her grandparents eventually got all the kids together and took care of them. So thank God for our grandparents, right? That is
I
one,
thank God every day. Yeah, my
right?
grandmother is a real gift to this world. I still live with her today.
See,
Beautiful
that's
community
great.
we're in, and she's a wonderful person, even helping out people, you know, who need
That,
medical attention here and there. So
oh,
it's
that's
just really good.
amazing. I'm so
Yeah,
happy.
yeah.
Okay, so how did the instability in your early years, do you think, shape the way you learned how to survive or cope with things or be more mature in an earlier
Yeah.
like, do you feel like you matured quicker than the other kids maybe
So
that were
absolutely not.
Oh,
It's funny.
really?
So the
Okay.
first instance when I was 2 and taken away, like, that I think just made me more insecure about what was happening around me, and
Okay.
when I went back with my mother, I almost had, like, separation anxiety as, like, a 6-year-old, like, walking away from her,
Okay.
and just wanted a lot of attention, and unfortunately started, doing things behaviorally, acting out to get attention, which looking back on it,
Oh,
can't believe
no.
that was me, but you never, like you're a
Yeah, you
different
were
person, your
young.
emotions play. And so I just never really came to terms. However, when I was 19, when she passed, I did. I did. It was something that pushed me that I don't want anybody planning my funeral. I don't want anybody having to pay for my,
Right.
I at 20 years old, I bought my plot of land. Like,
Aw,
I was just like, I want to make sure that I'm independent and that I'm not a burden on anyone, and that
right.
I want to live a life that she would be proud of.
That's amazing. That is so nice to hear. That to me, that is strength right there. So, okay, so
Mm.
now I wanted to dive a little bit into your faith and just talk about, like, you did mention that you were raised in the Catholic Church when you were younger. What did your faith look like when you were a child?
It was a Sunday faith. There was no Bible music at home, or I don't even know if we had a Bible in the house. It was just very, and some of my friends went to CCD on Wednesdays at night, but no, on Saturday morning. So
Mm,
everything was just, in that box. It wasn't like it
okay.
overflowed into my life really.
Okay. And that's, lots of people live their life that way when they're younger and their faith tends to be a little more, I don't want to say stale, but when you really find that relationship, it usually happens when you're older, when
Yes.
life gets complicated, right? So when for you did your faith finally feel like it became more relational? Like, you felt like, oh, I need God. I need to be drawn to him.
I think I was about 25 when
Okay.
I finally came back to church. When I was 19, I'd stopped attending and put it out of my mind.
So
And
that was after your
mm,
mother's death.
yeah,
You
after she
stopped
passed,
you stopped attending completely.
yeah,
Okay.
and I was very angry for a long time. Thinking, why is this happening to me? I had experienced more loss, by the age of 22 than most of my friends had. My
Right.
mother, then my great grandmother, my grandfather, like one after the other, and it just felt like very, I don't know why, targeted, because I did have that separation anxiety from when I was a child. So it just was
Right.
harder to feel that stability again. Um, but yeah, there was a time where somebody invited me to their Christian church,
Okay.
Oasis Christian Center in
Okay,
Rahway.
I've heard of that. Yep.
Yeah. And they were a coworker, and I said, yeah, I'll give it a try and see how it is. And I ended up really loving it and enjoying it and finding some community there. Um, I started to build my relationship, but it was still inconsistent. It wasn't the forefront,
Right.
unfortunately, it just never got to that point. Um, I think when I really surrendered myself was last December.
Okay.
I had a period in my life where I just, and it's very funny because Pastor just spoke about that in the message today, where I was just so devastated with grief and loneliness that I didn't think there was a way out.
Okay.
I I was frustrated, I was angry, I was bitter, and going back to Oasis for the first time in a few years, because it wasn't I believed in God, I prayed here and there, but it wasn't a priority in my life. Um, I just surrendered myself there. I said, there has to be another way. And I heard somebody in the parking lot said, well, I wish I could tell my coworker, you don't have to do this alone. God's there for you. And I feel like that, even
That's
just
right.
that clicked for me,
That's
that
right.
he's
Yeah.
always been the way. And it just,
And then
it was,
eventually you ended up moving churches, right? And you go to
yes,
a different church now, but
yes,
you're still connected and in a way that you've never experienced before. Do you think this
yes.
is like the peak?
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. And it's, so I started attending Liquid in June because it was such a big part of my boyfriend's life, and
Okay.
I said, "Well, can I come to church with you one day?" I initiated because I saw it as
Oh,
such a
you
big part
asked
of his
him?
life.
You asked him?
Yes,
Oh, that's
yes.
nice.
So I think also he did. It's very sweet, considerate person, and I don't think he wanted to feel like he was pressuring me into
Right,
it.
right, right, right.
But I know that like a lot of his friends were there, and so I was like, let me go see what this is about. And I had watched a few um, online sermons at that
Okay.
point, and really found the message just very, there were highs and lows. There were things that we need to heed and take caution with, and
Mhm.
there were things that we could just rejoice in and be in awe in. And I just really loved the message that Tim and the other pastors
Yes.
at Liquid presented. And I was so happy I got to go at that time because it was the last service at the Middlesex campus, which was
Oh,
heartbreaking for so
wow.
many people. But
Yeah.
God really does put people in places for a reason, because
Right.
I was there to, I was there, able to be there for him because I wasn't
Mhm.
grieving that loss.
Right.
And I think that was, just God's timing, just on
Oh,
display.
yes.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, he
Yeah.
prayed over, I don't know if you've seen how he prayed over my book. It's in
Oh,
one of
yes.
my videos I put out there, and I'm like, it's just, I was so grateful, like he just feels that I was gonna move many mountains with it, and who knows where it goes, but here it is. Look, I have another person who is going to use her life to help others, and I'm so thankful. So
Oh,
thankful to that.
yes.
Your
Yes.
life has meaning, definitely. So, all right, let's see where. Okay, so the next section is about loss, grief, and anger. So, you lost your mom at 19 after a very complicated relationship that carries a lot of layers of grief right there. How would you describe that season of your life where, you said you turned away from God, but you didn't turn to drugs. You didn't go that direction. It sounds like you just became more focused on doing the best you can to be successful. Is that when you focused on becoming a teacher and things like that?
Yeah, so I was blessed to be in the situation I was in. I was already living with my grandparents at that time. My mother had already, lost custody of us, but I mean, I was 19. But I lived with them in Rahway because I had a wonderful job at the
Mhm.
Merck Child Care Center. And
Okay.
I'm not saying it's wonderful because of the pay or the environment, even though they were great, but
Right.
it was just the staff and the people that really gave me confidence. And
Mhm.
I tell people that's like the key to motivation in your life, is like having that confidence in yourself. And just that support system. So that was a big part of it was, I was doing so well with that and learning, and that really helped support me through that difficult time, with that wonderful group of people there, my work family. Um, but it was a very difficult time because I felt a lot of guilt too. I had stopped
Right.
speaking to my mother a few months before she passed because
Mm.
I'm just like in the middle, and my grandparents didn't talk to her because of the drug relapse.
Right.
She had been clean a year before she passed. She did work to get clean again and tried to get on her feet, but
This was your
there
mom's
was,
parents?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I was kind of right there in the middle, and then going down the shore and seeing my stepdad and my sister and brother living down there, and so. But when I'd see my mom, she would, her heart was angry and bitter and frustrated, and she would say things about, my grandparents or my dad, and I just felt like I was in a rough position there. So I wrote her a letter and gave it to her, and mailed it to her, and I hadn't talked to her for a few months. I
Now,
was
when you said dad, you mean your stepdad
Yeah,
or
my
your
stepfather.
okay, good.
Yeah,
Just
my
wanted
stepfather.
clarification.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good that
Um,
you call him dad.
yeah.
Because you've
Well,
known him you've known him since you were little, right?
like 5, yeah, they got
Yeah.
married when I was 6, so yeah. And
Okay.
I
Great.
it's funny because they were high school sweethearts,
Aw.
and then somewhere my bio dad came in the picture, but, that was a quick exit when I was 2 as well, so, but no, my stepfather has been the
Right.
consistent factor.
Good.
God bless him and all he's been through,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
yeah, it was difficult because of the guilt. That was a
Right.
really big thing to grasp, is I
But have
lost a lot of
you
time.
moved past that guilt?
Yes, yes.
Okay. What helped you to move past that, do you think?
I think I really think God did, but, realizing his timing, his plan, that I didn't miss those 3 months, but also God created an opportunity for me to see my mom a week before she passed,
Right.
and, she was in the hospital getting treatment for her diabetes, and my grandmother said, we're going to go visit her before we go to Ireland. Do you want to come? And I said, okay, I'll come. And I had talked to her for a while. But, everybody's nervous because she was in the hospital, and, even though she had stopped using a year before, the drug use had done a lot to her body and the diabetes. So I was just praising God for that opportunity that I was presented to see her before she did pass. So,
Yes. Yeah. I am a full believer in that everything happens for a reason.
yes.
I've seen that a number of times in my life over and over, and you don't know until later. A lot of times it takes a while till you're like, "Oh, that's why." And just like that happened for a reason. God gave you that opportunity to see her, before she
Yes.
passed. So that is good. Um, okay. So in what ways did you become strong out of necessity rather than choice, or do you disagree with that?
I agree with that. I definitely had to be stronger because of, feeling like, again, I didn't want to be a burden on anybody. I wanted to make sure that I was managing myself and everything on my own, and just being an adult. And it was a quick grow up because I was a very naive 18-year-old and a 19-year-old. It was no
Oh.
joke that even today somebody will say something and be like, "Oh, wow, really?" Like, no, they're being completely sarcastic, and I'm very gullible, okay? Um,
Oh, that's funny.
but
Aw.
I did have to learn to, deal with life, and I remember doing things like writing to Pfizer for my prescriptions when I was working at the daycare and I wasn't full time, but I was making too much to be on state.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, the limbo in the state is a lot,
Yeah,
but
right.
at
And did
19, but
they Did they respond to you?
Yeah, I did actually, and a lot of people don't know you can do that, and you can. You can write
Wow.
to drug companies and say, "This is a situation, don't quite qualify," but the qualifying limits are astronomically low right now.
Okay.
So,
So
and
what
I
do
mean,
they just give you a discount? Is that what they do?
yeah, they'd
Or
either give you, like, a discount card, or they would even, like, one of them like, would mail the medication to me. I'd attach, like,
wow.
the prescription, and they would, yeah,
Aw, that's
yeah,
amazing. That's
yeah, so
great. I got chills actually when you said that. That is
yeah.
great. I'm glad that you got that help. So, I'm glad they understood, you know. Some not
Mhm.
many would, but, it's nice to hear that they cared. Um,
Absolutely.
so looking towards the turning point. So, you had experienced a convergence of fear, betrayal, loss. What made these moments different than others? Or what finally led you back into church, basically? Not just physically, but spiritually, like putting those all together. Was it
So,
just your friends? What do you think? Were you ready?
I think talking about how I have the relationship right now, that came from a place of depression and betrayal
Okay.
and loss. I was a very active member of a charity organization in my community, and
Okay.
it was a very big part of my life,
Mhm.
um, like a very daily part of my life. I did a lot there, and it was really nice too because there was a connection between my school life and what I did there within the town, and things that I was able to do for students in the community through funds to this
Okay.
charity organization. And it stopped very abruptly
Oh.
because of a single person. And
Oh.
I fought for about 5 months, and that was really what turned my heart, turned the hatred and the bitterness and the anger and the betrayal. And I just like looked in the mirror one day and I'm like, this isn't me.
Mm.
This
Wow.
isn't who I was raised to be. I need to find something. I need to move on.
Okay.
I was ready to fight this until the end, but it
Okay.
was really a political thing. It wasn't anything I'd done
Oh,
wrong,
okay.
unfortunately. But
And you said it was depression related. How d
yeah, it's very
how did depression affect you?
um at the same time that this was happening, I had also just started a medical journey on Manjaro. I
Okay.
was diagnosed for the first time in my life with diabetes,
Okay.
and heard my mom's story. My uncle passed 2 years prior
Okay.
at that time because of diabetes solely. And I was terrified. I
Oh.
was terrified that I was going down that road. So being on I kind of stopped eating for a little while.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
it didn't get, bulimic or anything, or, I wasn't weighing myself every day, but I was between what I was happening with this situation, the charity organization, and my medical. I, I didn't have an appetite, and
Okay. Yeah.
that, was also a result of depression, just feeling alone and abandoned. I was like, why aren't people fighting for me? They see what I've been doing. And
Right.
it was really a frustrating time. It still brings up a lot of emotions, but something that liquid has offered me is a place, an outlet for what I do, for giving back for this
Right.
charity. I
Yeah.
worked with wonderful outreaches this year, and every Sunday I help Rhodey and do middle school, and I think that has really poured into my life, at the same level, like bringing me
That's
back to God.
amazing. That's
Yeah,
amazing. And it's amazing that, going back to God brought this joy with other people, and basically defeated Satan, right? Because he loved that you were depressed and wanted you to stay there, but you found a way out of that, and we're so thankful that God led you. to where he knew you needed to be. So I'm thankful for that. And I'm sure everyone who knows you is also thankful to that. Um, can you describe what it was like when you first went in and worshiped and realized that God is still here and he still loves me no matter what I thought he thought of me? What was that moment? Did you, feel tears? Like I've gone into church and like just get so moved,
Yeah,
moved to tears.
yeah, and it was the worship. It was actually Christmas, the
Oh,
Christmas service. It was a
oh,
few
nice.
days before, it was on the Sunday before, and it was actually at Dean County Performing Arts Center. Oasis would do it
Okay.
there because they had a lot of people attend, and I remember the song, um, "The Blood,"
Okay.
and I just remember, everything changed, and
Mhm.
it just gave me hope that that change was there, that I could get to that, and I did. I started crying. I had to sit down. I was shaking. It
Yep.
was yeah, it was really a genuinely emotional moment because I had been living in like so much darkness for such a long time, and it just felt right to be able to see hope at the end.
Right. You're giving me chills again.
Sorry.
Like, because I know I've been in those moments and it is just there's nothing like it, and even you can watch online, right? And you can watch the service and the music, but when you're there in person in that moment in the worship, like there's just, even
Mm,
if there's not huge burdens on you, you feel moved. And when there is something so special like what you were experiencing in that moment, it's just it's amazing, and I could only imagine someday in heaven what we're going to experience at
um,
that point in time. Um, okay, so you mentioned that following Jesus brought things in your life into like an alignment. So, what does that alignment look like practically for you, having Jesus back in your life? Besides the
so
depression being gone,
yeah,
but
yeah.
is there anything else?
Even without the depression, I've always kind of struggled with this feeling that I'm not enough.
Hmm.
Um, and it's very cliche, the whole "you're enough" thing,
Oh,
but
I know.
that is something special to believe in yourself that you are enough for a situation, for a person, for a relationship, um, and just being who you are. And I've been told by people very close to me, not directly, but something that could translate is you are not enough,
Right.
which is, frustrating. And during that time that I had just went through last fall, I felt so much like I was not enough. And to be honest, I'd started a relationship with someone at that time, the day after Christmas last year, and I think we got to 2 dates, and then I kinda called it off, like, made excuse, like, "Oh, I'm seeing someone else,"
Right,
right?
right.
And even though I'd had that experience, before a few days before Christmas, and I'd started going to church at that time, again, more frequently and being part of that community, I didn't get to that point until later on,
Okay.
and a lot of me walking away from that relationship was thinking that I was not enough.
Okay.
Um, so it's so funny because we just talked about this last night, but um, in April, so that was in
Okay.
December, probably January, I texted him, and in April, I texted him and say, "Hey, I want to see how you're doing," and was apologized for walking away at that time, but feeling like I was enough and I was deserving and worthy of good things, and that just had this feeling that God put him in my life.
Right.
He's a very different person than anybody else I'd met, talked to, and the biggest one was that God was at the center of his life. And you could see
Right.
it just the way that he talks to people and how he lives his life.
Right.
Um, but I felt like not the relationship, but just the feeling that I am enough came
Right.
from my relationship with God. And that
Oh,
was what enabled me to rekindle this relationship. And it's been one of the best things I've experienced in my life.
amazing. Have you had
Yeah.
any students who are struggling with this? Maybe that.
Many. I teach middle school and it is a rough time in their lives. I
Right.
remember myself in middle school and not
Right.
feeling like enough and feeling like I was good enough for
Yeah.
things. And what I like to tell my students a lot is who you are today, what you do today is not who you can be tomorrow.
Right.
Um, and that they are always enough, you
Right.
know,
And I'm
that,
sure you're using that and to help
yeah,
them feel that.
yeah.
That's
My
go ahead.
so what I tell them at the beginning of the year is that I teach eighth grade
Mhm.
language arts because I failed eighth grade language arts and
Ah.
I'm doomed to repeat it forever. And it's I tell them that when they say I'm not smarter, I can't do this. I'm like
Right.
I couldn't do it either. Like I get that. Like there
Yeah.
was times that I thought I wasn't smart enough. I graduated high school with a 1.6 GPA and graduated with my master's with a 3.6 GPA. Um,
Wow. Wow.
it's not what you have the ability to do. It's what you learn
Mhm.
how to strategize and how to cope and how to build those skills around it. So
Right.
it's I say
How to
it's
believe in yourself.
yes, there's no limitation. You have no limitation on you whatsoever if you believe that.
Right. All right. Great. So you had mentioned one of the things that you mentioned when you wrote to me was that you wanted to write a memoir someday. What do you feel God is still shaping before that happens?
Yeah, so I'm I told you I started going last December to church more regularly. So it's
Yeah.
only been a year and I'm
Right.
still growing in what my relationship with God looks like and what potential, we him living through me, like my
Mhm.
actions reflecting him it could really be.
Right.
And I think that none of our stories are ever finished, but I just
Right.
don't think I'm at a stopping point yet in my life.
Right.
There's, been so much transition and change within the last year and a half that I feel like I want to see it through
So there's
before I
not like
start
a
to unfold it.
resolution yet. You need to find a
Mhm.
resolution before
Yes.
you're ready. No, I
Yes.
totally get that.
Yeah.
Um, so in your words, how would you define being unshaken right now? I'm sure back when you were younger, it was probably different than you would say it now, say or define it now. Um, what would be your definition if I said, okay, how are you, Christina, unshaken? What do you think?
Unshaken means so many things to me.
Okay, so go whichever way do
um,
you want to go with it.
I mean, definitely unshaken in my faith.
Okay,
I I think
great.
that a
Yeah.
lot of people wait for signs or some resolution from God to change their lives for them to believe,
Right.
and even though a lot of my belief came at a time during change, I still know that God put it inside of me. He didn't make things happen around me.
Right.
He changed my outlook. He spoke to my heart to
Mhm.
help enact that change. And I think that's what makes me unshaken is that believing that God does have the plan, but he puts it forth through you, that you can't take that away,
Right.
that
I
he
agree.
will always be there. And that my favorite line is that God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called.
That's right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
I
that's
think that
right.
that, holds a lot of truth with through him all things can be done.
That's right. That's right. And one of the things, I'm in a Bible study right now. One of the things that topics we've been talking about is that God doesn't call the people who are, successful, like got it, they have it all put together. A lot of times he calls the messy people
Mhm.
who, are still struggling, because he knows that their lives are exactly what need him, and they
Yes.
believe that they don't have everything on their own. um, we need help, Well, that's what I believe. Without my faith, I would not be here today. Without God, I would not be here today. And that's the feeling I'm getting from you, which is a great, great thing to feel and believe in. Um, so if somebody, Christina, was listening now, which plenty of people will be listening to your message, if they have walked away from God because of either loss, betrayal, anger, illness, what would you say to them now?
Just to reiterate what you said is that you don't have to be perfect to have a relationship with God. You don't, the whole New Year's resolution thing just happened, and a lot of people are stopped it already.
That's
But you
right.
don't, it doesn't. It can start as a once a week thing and build and grow. It doesn't have to be your all or nothing. So walking back doesn't mean that you're right away going to know what to do, know how to act, know what questions to ask or how to pray, but just being there and looking for him. And it's just such an important step to take is looking to him and saying, giving that surrender,
Right.
that this is not, nobody can do it alone, especially in this broken world. But
Right. Right.
knowing that broken people are on God's radar, that's he
100%.
he's develops that relationship tenfold.
Yes. Agreed. Um, so there are so many people listening who have been through either grief, illness, disappointments, that made them step away from God. Sometimes, like I said, out of anger, or they felt like that, like you said, they're not good enough, or not worthy. And the way that you're speaking honestly about these seasons in your life, especially of loss, fear, losing your mom at 19, having your grandparents having to take you, when you were 2, from a mom who was struggling with drug addiction, and just disappearing from your life, and feeling maybe like you weren't good enough, is something that not just you, but many people, the situation may be different, but many people will carry this feeling quietly and not share it with others, which makes it even harder, and a lot fall into depression, like you ended up falling into. And I think what makes your story so meaningful is that it shows that coming back to faith doesn't require having, a degree. You don't need to have your life figured out. It's about being honest, surrendering, right? Just suddenly feeling like I need God, and being willing to return even in a state of brokenness, right? Things don't have to start feeling better. And I truly believe that your testimony will give hope to people who are feeling distant from God, um, and remind them that they're not disqualified because of their past, right? Some people have done horrible things, and it doesn't matter, right? In the Bible, it says that, you know, you can come to God with anything and he will forgive you. There's no sin too great. So I,
Yes.
I truly think that your story is going to resonate with anyone who is navigating loss, illness, anyone who needs a spiritual rebuilding, and it fits beautifully into this journey of Unshaken Voices. And I'm so happy that your story, which is a true, real, felt story of faith and healing and hope after a shaken life, is a wonderful testimony to everyone who will hear this. And I hope for years and years to come, this is still spreading for people to find hope. So if there's anything else that you would like to share, anything that you would want to say?
Just that my life started in a even more difficult way when I was 9
Mm-hmm.
months old. I
Okay.
died 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Um, and my mother would always tell me that God saved you because he has a purpose for you.
Wow.
And I feel like I'm living my purpose. Like I'm doing what I can for our world to be better. And
Okay.
I think that that's something I do to honor God. And if anybody could just, help one person, uh, even with time, doesn't even have to be money, but in some way, like volunteer at a food bank or
Right.
something, it really just makes me feel so much more connected
Okay.
with my faith because knowing that we are all here for each other
Yes, helping others
is
is the
something
one. And there are many
amazing.
opportunities for helping, whether it be through your church, your community. So that is great that you brought that up. That is a wonderful thing.
Yeah,
So okay. I'm trying to think. So how did that happen? I'm curious. At 9 months old,
yeah.
what
So
happened?
I was born with panhypopituitarism, which
Okay.
is like a 1 in a million thing, where I was born without a functioning pituitary gland,
Wow.
and that does a lot. That's a lot of people hear about hypothyroidism these days or
Right.
hyperthyroidism. It's a little different than that because I was born with it where my pituitary didn't function. It didn't um, generate growth hormone or reproductive hormone, things like
Wow.
that. So like I was eating, but it my body couldn't tell the nutrients where to go to sustain
Wow.
me. So I was very small. They didn't know it was wrong. Very weak, but thank God this incredible doctor in Morristown, saved me, diagnosed me,
Wow.
and I went to him for years, even sending him a message on LinkedIn recently, just thanking him again. Like,
Aw, that's nice.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So it's just,
Great.
God put him in our path, and yeah, I'm just feel so blessed and lucky because if I had been born a few years earlier, I probably wouldn't be here today.
Wow.
As
So
the technology, the medication was so new at that time.
right. So again, everything happens for a reason. So you
It
were
does.
born at that time, found that doctor. It's all part of God's plan for your life. So that is
Yes.
amazing. So, well, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it, and I'm so happy to get this story out to others. It'll probably be out in a few days. I'll take a few days to do some editing and things like that. But thank you again, and I I wish many blessings on you, and that the rest of your journey gets finalized so that someday you can write your memoir and get that out to others in a different way than this will.
Yes. Yes, and
So,
thank you so much for what you're doing, getting these stories out there so people could resonate and see hope and see real life change that has happened, and I think that gives us hope. So thank
yes.
you for what you're doing.
Oh, you're very welcome. And hopefully, I'll get to meet you soon. And I'll come sign your
Yes,
book, sign the book
yes.
for you.
Thank you.
All right. Stay safe today in this snowstorm.
You too.
Take care, hon.
Alright, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.